Good morning, everyone. Welcome in. Betsperts Golf here for our first look at the 2024 Memorial. A couple good weeks of golf, Ron. We have Memorial heading into the U.S. Open and coming off of an exciting Canadian. I really enjoyed what Hamilton had to offer. Great story, great, exciting leaderboard. A lot of people in the mix there down the stretch, and obviously Bobby Mack winning. Running red hot with the putter, winning with doubt in the bag was a really, really cool story. What's going on, bud?
Yeah, Canada produces again. My neighbor just an hour to the east here. So yeah, it just looks like such a fun tournament every year, and I love the course, the elevation changes, and yeah, you saw things, kind of with the rain, the softer conditions. Scoring was low, and then it got a little tougher as the day went on. But yeah, I mean, great story with Father's Day coming up here, and yeah, we're kind of getting into major season with the Memorial this week. I know it's a little different with only 73 players in the field. We do have an actual cut, so it's the top 50, and ties if you're within 10 shots of the lead. So we've got a couple tournaments, Riviera and Arnold Palmer were the other ones where we have a very very short field. But we still have a cut line. And so, yeah, Pinehurst next week. So kind of different courses, obviously, we had a lot of thick rough this week. Pinehurst is completely different. So, yeah, excited to get into it here.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, I think this is moved in the calendar too, with Memorial typically being on Memorial Day weekend. They like to stack signature events either before or after a major. And I think I understand why there's an appeal to do that for casuals, where you keep some momentum. If you were to watch the Memorial and it's exciting and there's familiar names, the next week you turn into the U.S. Open, like, oh, I watched a lot of these guys last week at that other tournament. So there's something to that for the casuals. It is a very different course, as you said, from Pinehurst, but also I think an exceptional test of golf. And, you aren't going to be able to fake your way around either course. What they ask is a little bit different, as you mentioned, in terms of what the layouts are, but excited to see what happens here at the Memorial and how that can kind of roll into Pinehurst the next week, which should be, again, just aesthetically pleasing golf the next couple of weeks. And, coming off of, I think, a great track at Hamilton as well. So yeah, really, really excited. Obviously we are Jack's place. Jack's got his hand in a lot of golf courses over all across this country. I think pretty clearly he hit a home run with his home track here, the Memorial, and it's been even better since the redo a couple of years ago. People were picking this apart. It was kind of getting into that birdie fest territory, and then the renovation really changed things. So real quick on that, Ron, you want to touch base on kind of what happened in the renovation and really what we've seen and how this course is played and what we should be expecting since.
Yeah, so scoring, if you look like from 2016 to 2020, like scoring was about, 3/4 of a shot over par. And yeah, so Nicholas gets in there like he's a guy who always tinkers, is always doing something. Like every single hole at Muirfield Village has been, changed in some way since the course opened. And so, yeah, he always is a guy who, favors his courses seem to favor, a high ball flight, left to right power fade off the tee. And so, yeah, extensive renovation in 2020. We have new tees on 5 holes, complete reconstruction of green complexes. We have bent grass obviously here. Bunkers were recontoured, a lot of holes completely rebuilt. And so, yeah, we've seen over the last 3 years, scoring is up to 1.12 strokes over par per round, so about 1/3 of a shot tougher, and it's much more difficult off the tee, especially. You still have wide fairways, you still have around 32 yards on average, but the fairways are more pinched in and in different spots, and you also have a lot more kind of strategically placed fairway bunkers. So more difficult off the tee, and then on approach, you're always dealing with you got like 12 or 11 water hazards on approach players have to deal with. And so smaller greens, 5,000 square feet on average. So a lot of scrambling opportunities, and it's really tough around the greens with the thick rough. So Yeah, I think approach and around the green are definitely the two big areas to focus on this week. And
Yeah,
obviously, you want to be in the fairway as well, for sure.
Yeah, that's it, right? You just said this is just a pretty elite tee to green test. You really aren't going to survive or be in position to score or really hold the green from the rough for the most part. Again, you mentioned they are a little bit bigger. He did really want to put a premium, I think, on the second shot, kind of again, like really trying to replicate Augusta as much as possible, where, we have big fairways at Augusta, but you got to be in the right spot and be able to actually to score and hold the greens, because the greens are firm and fast. And here at Memorial Village, small greens. So yeah, elite tee to green test. You have to have the entirety of the bag this week for sure. And then putting maybe a little bit easier than normal. I guess smaller greens sometimes lead to that too, with it's hard to be 60 yards away and have to lag putt and three putt. So a little bit easier there, but again, scoring is very, very difficult. And since we renovated here, exciting leaderboard last year, folks remember, this is really, really bunched up at the top. Good mix, good drama all the way to the end. No surprise, Hovland won. Scotty is shot back. Lost like 8 strokes putting for the week. So this is kind of when things started to go real sideways putting wise for Scotty. But like greens and reg, 52%, which is just about 12% below a tour average event. So very, very difficult to get on the green and reg here. And again, that's telling you're going to have to scramble this week, even if you're dialed in. Scotty hit 71% of the greens. Hovland won, hitting 57% of the greens. Again, just significantly lower than the tour average event. And you have to put the whole thing together this week. So and distance matters quite a bit here too. We're kind of stretched out like 7,500 from the tips. And I think you did a great job in your preview on the site. People can check that out too. Like high ball flight, being able to really have the ability that helps here with the long iron shots, being able to hold the greens too. That's something you look at here in the rabbit hole as well. So yeah, folks should definitely head over to the site, check that out. I'll pop this up here. Again, you can check out Ron's preview. It's up this morning. Fantastic look. Again, more details than you would possibly imagine. Looking through this course, lots of other ways too. If you want to grab a subscription, Betsperts Golf, get access to all the things that we're doing. There's some other articles here on the site that let you know how you can sign up through one of our partners to get a really cheap couple of months discount through the summer. Take you through the remaining 2 majors. Get this week at the Memorial. Join us for next week at the U.S. Open. Check that out. Details there on the site. And again, you want to dig into to Ron's preview, like you said, is just as good as anything that's really out there. Getting quotes from previous years. You get all the course history data that you could possibly imagine. I'll send you some really good YouTube links to kind of walk you through the course if that's your thing as well. The fraudulent thing here on the Muirfield Village course history is this Patrick Cantley win in 21. It was the COVID Ramir where he was going absolutely nuclear, like a 6-7 stroke lead after 3 rounds, just absolutely tearing this place apart for the second consecutive year, and then had to pull out because of COVID. That was absolutely a brutal one, and Cantley kind of backdoored a win there. But Cantley, prime Cantley, which we haven't seen this year, that's kind of the perfect makeup, right? Like, I don't want to say Cantley's done, but like long and straight off the tee. You get, dialed in on approach. Your short game is in and dialed in for the week. You're going to show up here towards the top of the board. So definitely head over to the site. Check this out. Again, opening odds are up, and courtesy of our friends over the lines. We'll take a look at this. We have a few books posted. FanDuel a little slow to act this morning. We have, at least where I am here, MGM, Rivers, DraftKings out early. Scotty Scheffler. 3.5, 4-1 feels kind of appropriate. See how he's been doing there since seeing him last. Rory here, 750, 8-1. Same thing for Xander. He's there in the mix too. Not, it feels like a great Xander course. Does not really threaten the leaderboard or the top of the board here at any point, which is surprising. Morikawa has won here. Take that with a grain of salt. We back in the COVID days played this back-to-back weeks, and the setups were very, very, very different. Morikawa won on the easier setup, but again, theoretically, you would think, straight, long and straight off the tee, long iron game, those things for Morikawa, if we can kind of get over the bugaboo of these fourth rounds that have just been kind of a problem for him of late. Hovland, again, your defending champ, 16, 18s. Ludwig, again, get to these very difficult golf courses where long and straight play. It makes sense that Ludwig's sub 20 here. JT, Cantley, Decky, Fleetwood, Wyndham Clark, Thigala, Homa kind of rounding out here your top, your guys at 40, Spieth in there as well. So yeah, interesting leaderboard again, as you mentioned, loaded field, Ron. Well, basically everyone that you would expect to be here. Bobby Mack bailing out, going home to Scotland to, have some pints, hang out with the girlfriend, celebrate before he comes back for the U.S. Open. Good for him. Pretty much anyone else you would expect to be here is here. So any initial thoughts at the top of the board?
Yeah, and I was just looking back at last year, and like you said, tee to green. This was the Memorial where Scotty gained almost 21 strokes tee to green, and it's just unbelievable number. And obviously, the comment has been made, if he just putts even just slightly below average, he's probably winning running away. And so it's just we're back to where we were before when he's in these fields. There's just so many numbers on here that it's just so hard to, when you see the single digits even on Xander, it's like, he won the PGA, can he do it again? And then I think you see maybe some value if you trust the course history and Patrick Cantlay at 25-1. You see Max Homa, who I know has struggled this year big time, was really bad last event. He's sitting there at a 40. Probably would have been jumping all over that on a course like this, even 6 months ago. There's some value as you go down there, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with the odds in the next couple of days.
Yeah, kind of wait and see how things play out. But yeah, definitely some interesting names, some interesting course history too. And it has been a place where course history has mattered. The only thing with that is that you do have the renovation, right? So like, you're starting to pull back on a place where course history matters. Of course, we come to every year, but at the same time, it's kind of a new place, as Ron touched on at the topic. Every hole got a facelift. So just kind of leaning on, what a guy did here in 2016, 2017, I just don't think is super relevant. So careful with the course history this week. I think dialing into some of the specifics that we can build out through the rabbit hole, I think make more sense. And again, the applications to be able to put conditions on that make this kind of show how hard it can play is a great way to start. So let's start there, Ron. What do you want to kind of get big picture look in terms of conditions to look at what we need to build out for the rabbit hole?
Yeah. So again, filter menu here. We've got, our big three. I think obviously scoring conditions. This is the second most difficult, especially after the renovation, the second most difficult non-major course on tour. And so, difficult, very difficult scoring conditions. Obviously, we get into the length here, and this is the fifth longest course on tour as well. So, get into those long, very long boxes as well. And then obviously field strength is just the best of the best this week. So, it's probably a week where, like we talk about, maybe not combining all three together, but, just kind of checking each individually, kind of the difficult, long and strong field strengths.
Yeah. Yeah, love that. Don't overfit the model, people. We appreciate subscribers getting there, messing around with stuff. Sometimes it's kind of why we're doing the show. Because again, like most of this is all paywalled, but we are giving it out for free here to let people get a sample of what we have to offer. At the same time, we have people often building models, and I just would say overfitting, selecting 8 conditions and not really trying to figure out why they're not getting anything into their data set. So like Ron said, look at a handful of things. Ron does a great job in his article, at the bottom of the article, telling you all of the conditions and factors that you should or could be looking at and prioritizing them. So take advantage of that. But then look at them, in conjunction with each other when they make sense. But for the most part, you want to kind of piece these together individually and take a look and change the weights, whereas you can get yourself into a really noisy, small data set that you need to mess with the sample to go back 5 years to be able to get, 20 rounds of data. And that's not anything that we're really trying to do here. So scoring conditions are going to be on the difficult side. Pretty much everything this week is going to be on the harder side of things. Obviously, we have a long course. We have a small field, strong event. It's not a non-cut event, but similar to that, what we would typically see. If you find value in field size, you can go ahead and do that. Bunkering, I don't love to mess with bunkers, but I think you would probably agree if you're going to do something bunker-wise in a model, this would probably be the place, right? Like the bunkers are difficult and deep here. That's a thing that you can look at. We have a smaller, fast greens that are probably going to play out firm. You're gaining in terms of gaining on approach. Greens and reg are very difficult. We have high rough, very long rough, and a very high missed fairway penalty, which I think is another great way to chop this up this week too. So some of the key ways for you to look at it, you can go ahead and do all that here through the rabbit hole if you're seeing this for the first time. But let's take a look here real quick, build out some stuff for folks. We'll look at difficult and very difficult scoring conditions. And we'll do that on long and very long courses. I think that's a good way to start. And let's see who we get. We'll back out our sample size here. Right now, we're just on 6 months. We're getting 20 rounds. Let's back this up over the last year. So let's see who we get. And again, a tee to green test, really, more so than anything I care about here. So, and again, your top three remains the same. Scotty, Rory, Xander, Hideki right there, Russell Henley, Tommy Fleetwood, Siwoo Kim, Alex Noren, Corey Connors, Shane Lowry rounding out your top 10. I'm going to add this here to our model to get started. You can make a note. You don't have to. Simply press the add button here, and you can add this to your mixed condition model. So we're going to do difficult and long. We'll add that in there. All right. Let's just go off the tee. I think there are a ton of ways that we can and should look at off the tee. Because like you said, you have to be in a spot where you can even consider getting a spot to score with your second shot. Definitely a second shot course, but with the redesign now, Ron, you have to be set up in the fairway and ideally a little bit long. I think you're really having that. Your ask for the short and accurate guys is a tall task this week. So what are your thoughts on a couple of ways to look at off the tee?
So, yeah. And, when you look at the past winners here, there's a lot of big names, but I think we'd all agree one thing that can be said is these are all like great drivers of the ball. When you look at Hovland, Cantlay, Rahm, Bryson won here back in 2018. I know even some of this before the renovation, when obviously it was more of a bombs away course. You still had the rough to deal with, but you had even wider fairways. Like, you just have to be a good driver to put yourself in position here. And so, yeah, there's a lot of ways you could go. I think obviously, distance from edge of the fairway again is going to be a key stat. I think you want to have some distance. So for me, this is a week where I would actually probably take a look at total driving and, even going back 12 months, you see the names you'd expect. And even like a Jordan Spieth, he's really, he's like his approach game has gone backward. It's been so inconsistent at times, but he's just pounding the heck out of the ball. And so his total driving, his accuracy, even at times off the tee is not as wild as it used to be. And so carry distance, obviously that's another one here. They've had a lot of rain the early part of the year here. So not sure yet how soft fairways will be. But I think carry distance is another important one to look at. So yeah, and good drive percentage. This is one where if you go back and look, I mean, you've got everybody on top of the leaderboard is high in good drive percentage. And so, you could either just take it straight up. You could take good drive percentage with high rough penalty. You could look at difficult approach courses and do it that way. So a lot of just so many different ways you could. And you could stack all these together in one model if you really wanted to get specific and just look at different conditions with the rough, with difficulty. So, yeah, a lot of ways to do it this week.
And I think you should. I mean, I think really you should be looking at all these. I think this is a great week to look at the floor ceiling model. I want to see consistently. I want to see how are you doing in these scenarios as well. Like how often are you, gaining off the tee with the high fairway penalty? How often are you gaining on approach with high fairway penalties? All these things I think are really good weeks too. Again, floor, ceiling, and the view section to mess around with how often someone is gaining in any of the strokes gain buckets. I think it's a great week for that. So yeah, I think all of them, as you said, are important. And at distance, I think distance matters. Let's look at, I think missed fairway penalty massive, like you said, 52% off or greens and reg. You're not finding it's hard enough from the fairway to hold these greens. You are really having a hard time if you are off the beaten path a little bit here too, even a little bit. So
yeah, you're at 39% greens and reg if you miss the fairway. So that's one of the lowest on in tour anywhere. So
you're done. Yeah, you're scrambling. Last 12 months missed fairway penalty high. Who was gaining off the tee in those scenarios? Your elite drivers, Rory, Scotty, Ludwig, Vic, Fleetwood at the top there. We'll go off the tee here. Again, I think all these matter. I think total driving, I think good drives, carry distance, all these things. So we'll go off the tee, penalty. Again, you don't have to make a note just for yourself. Easier for us. And again, I think there are multiple other ways to do it. Some of these are, I think, work in conjunction. I think good drives is kind of a similar situation. But you can capture that using that missed fairway penalty being high, looking at approach, who is gaining on approach when the missed fairway penalty is high, when they have the opportunity to do so. Again, Scotty, Xander, Adam Schenk, nice finish last year here. Shane Lowry, Russell Henley, again, decent course history here. Some interesting names. How do you want to attack approach? Just a couple of ways here if you want to look at it.
So, so on approach, so this is a week where if you're just looking at approach ranges to start with, you're looking at last year, 50% of approaches were from 175 yards and further. And so, you think, oh, well, you have to be so long off the tee. And yeah, distance helps, but there's a lot of holes still where you have to club down just because of how the fairways are shaped, because of some of the hazards. And so you only have 65% of drives here have been over 280 yards. And so, again, not taking driver in every hole is going to leave you some, longer approaches. Obviously, we got 4 par 5s. So you're going to have plenty of these from 200 plus as well. So yeah, just overall, definitely looking at 175 plus. And I think, Matt Kuchar had a great quote about, talking about the greens here. And he said, when the greens are fast, it's not so much.
I lose you?
Can you hear me?
Or did I lose me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah. I didn't know if I lost you or you lost me.
Yeah. So I was saying, Matt Kuchar had a quote. He's talking about when the greens are fast, it's not so much a premium on your putting, but your iron shots have a real premium. And so, yeah, putting stats show that this course is not difficult to putt on. But on approach, proximity, obviously, I think that's the thing this week too, is just looking at overall proximity. And we could even throw in looking at difficult to gain on approach courses. And so, using that filter, I think combined proximity, obviously looking at approach itself on difficult courses, and like I said, 175 plus, looking at those buckets. And again, we have the rough ability too, where you can look at and kind of weight out the percentage from the rough and the fairway.
Yeah, Ron's talking about here. If you want to look at specific range buckets, it's broken out both in fairway and approach, but you want to see proximity from 175 to 200 from the fairway. You have that here. You want to see it from the rough. We have that here as well. We're in the approach view where you get some of the bigger picture stuff too. I put on a gaining an approach to be difficult and very difficult. And you can see over here the last 6 months, pretty small sample. That's the guys you think there. If we back out a little bit, let's go 12 months in the scenario who's gaining an approach when it is difficult to do so. Scotty, Shane Lowry, Tom Hoagie, Corey Connors, Xander, top 5. Get some other guys that you would expect, and some guys that have some decent course history here too. So greens and reg, not too far off as well. It's interesting to see where there's a gap, like a Hoagie gaining on approach. The greens and reg is kind of more to the middle of the pack, which is interesting here too. So again, lots of different ways so many different ways. And I think you really should look at more than normal this week and kind of mess around with the weights and stuff like that. Cause I think there's some interesting ways to be double counting a little bit, looking at some of it. But again, like approach is a place where if we're going to start to double count, it's not a bad place to be. I think you're gaining on approach difficult. If you go back to and look at good drive gain, which is again capturing a little bit of a approach too. That matters. You can see here, Siwoo at the top, Scotty Scheffler, Shane Lowry, Tommy Fleetwood, Ludwig rounding out your top five. Again, some other names that are a little bit more accuracy guys, or some guys that have had some decent course history here too. So I'm going to go back and add good drives under this condition as well, with the gaining of approach being difficult. All right, we need to do something with around the green. As you mentioned, it's when you're hitting greens and reg at a 52% clip, you're going to have to scramble. How do you want to capture that data?
Yeah, so over the last decade, Muirfield ranks as, one of the top 8 most difficult courses in around the green difficulty. You have this, it's a rough week. You have this 4-inch rough around these greens. And so obviously some players better at that skill than others. And so we have the scrambling from the rough filter that I think is going to be very important this week. And, even if you wanted to combine that with, long rough, I'm not sure what kind of sample size I would give, but
let's try.
Yeah, I think this is scrambling around the green. Looking at both is definitely something you want to weigh a lot heavier in your model this week. And again, we talked last week about the stat around the green proximity. You can even look at that from the rough. So I think all those things definitely need to be weighted this week.
Should look at, is it we just call it difficult to scramble for the rough, or do you want to do like rough penalty, high, low? What do you think is the best way?
Yeah, I definitely on the gainer on the green, I'd go, I'd start with, the very difficult courses around the green. I'd look at that by itself. And then I'd probably just do, if, keep it a little shorter for the show, but I'd do a second one with just scrambling from the rough.
Okay. See what we get here. We back out a little bit. Scrambling from the rough. In situations where gaining around the green is difficult and very difficult. Interesting. Benny Ann, Stephen Yeager, Cam Davis, Hideki, Henley, Scotty, Putnam. Henley, Putnam, Siwoo. These are guys that have played well here in the past. More fairway finders off the tee, but guys that can get really dialed in with their wedges and irons, and if that's going well. That makes sense that they've had some success here. Rosie, Hoagie, Ben Griffin rounding this out. And we have all of the data from Canada is already loaded in here. So that's capturing some of this as well. Ben Griffin had a nice little tee to green week there at Hamilton. So we'll add scrambling from the rough. Or should we look at, just strokes gained around the green in this situation too?
Yeah, I'd probably do both just to get, maybe double count rough a little bit just because of, what they're going to see this week. And yeah, like you said, just looking back at, these bunkers, there's not a ton of bunkers, but like you said, they are very difficult. And so if you even wanted to look at scrambling from, sand saves on difficult courses as well, I think that might play. Or you also have the option on courses, I can't remember if we have a filter for sand saves that are difficult. I think we do, but you could do it from here as well. I think you're gonna cover it in this one as well.
Yep.
So yeah, there we go. So yeah, sand saves difficult. So yeah, a lot. There's just so many different ways. Like I get lost all the time going through these, and so you kind of have to make some decisions on how big you want your model to be. But if you're one of those people who like to go really deep, you have everything at your option this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'll stop. Mine that I built last night is bigger than normal because I just wanted to look at different variations of all these conditions that matter. And I think, as you said, those core buckets at the top, looking at difficult scoring conditions, long golf courses, high missed fairway penalty. There's so many different ways to look through a lens with that data, through that data set, and I think it's important. I think it matters this week, and to a varying degree will matter next week too. So we added around the green in this scenario. Do you want to do anything putting wise? Or we have some pretty smallish, firm and fast bent grass greens, right? Is there anything you want to do and capture?
Yeah, I think this week, we're looking at greens, obviously bent grass, around 13 on the stent meter. Um, so I would definitely include that. One thing I've been doing is because if you go to the filter too, not just bent, but Poa trivialis is almost identical to bent. It's even smoother than bent, and so I've been combining those together to get even a bigger sample because I think
Okay.
those two are very, very comparable surfaces, and we've seen a lot of Poa triv so far early in the year already, and so I think it kind of gives you more of a recency sample as well. And so, you could look at it just from these two. You could add in a fast column as well because greens are speedy. Again, like you said, these greens are not, when you look at the data, like putting is every single category, putting is easier. Even 3-putt percentage, obviously the greens are small, but we only have 1.9% 3-putt percentage here. So that's, the average is 3 exactly. And so you're way below normal there. So I think not weighing it too heavily. I think, tee to green, we, like you said, we saw Scotty just go off your tee to green and, lose a ton and he still finished third. So probably, definitely weighing putting a little bit less this week.
Yeah. And again, you look here, I like the Poa triv call out to mess with the sample size. We're looking at 6 months. You can mess around with that, obviously, but great putters at the top of the list here with Matt Hughes, Matt Kuchar, Denny, who's Denny's surprising that he's been near the top of the leaderboard here the last couple of years. Feels a little smoke and mirrors. We'll see if he wants to go ahead and do that a third time. It's not something I would chase per se, but probably more of a DFS discussion for you and Byron to have on Wednesday, depending on where those prices come out here. Again, Ben Griffin, Xander, Sahith, kind of your familiar top names here. Again, just great putters in this sample here too. So one other thing to look at, and again, you can make a decision on if you want to put it in your model. You can go into the miscellaneous metrics and you can get apex height, club head speed. Those things are going to matter. You got to have that club head speed if you find yourself in the rough. If you want to be able to hack it up and get it close, the ability to hit the ball high to hold these greens is going to matter a ton as well. So apex height, I think you have a Tiger quote in your preview talking about how he's had success on jack courses because he feels like his high ball flight helps him hold the greens and sets himself up well. What are your thoughts on apex height or anything like that this week?
Yeah, apex height. I mean, you could look at, obviously with the thick rough, club head speed. I think ball speed, again, off the tee. I think all these three are kind of fit the profile of the course this week as far as, types of characteristics you would like your players to have, if you're betting on them or, DFS, whatever you're doing this week. I think those three are definitely worth a look. Maybe not including in your model as much, but definitely like if you're looking at tiebreakers, if you're looking at, just in general, I think they're just good to have, and people already kind of know who these guys are. Obviously, Rory, high ball flight, but yeah, just to see it visually and then kind of confirm some of what you're thinking, I think is really cool to look at. And you can customize these over time. Like, I know Xander's added to his ball speed. And so, I did a little search the other day and, you can go back and look and he's like at 180 ball speed. If you go back, 18 months and then you look recently, he's up to 185. And so you can't do that anywhere else where you can actually look by time frame because, they have these on the PGA Tour website, but you cannot customize them in any way. And so that's one of the beautiful things about the rabbit hole is you can get in there and you can customize it. You can look at by rounds, by dates. And so just to be able to research in that way, I think is just crucial to find edges.
Could not agree more. Yeah, you could put any of these conditions on and look at all this data too. You said time frame manipulation, just a very different way to be able to look at the data. Again, we're getting this information from the PGA Tour, so it's not like it's all proprietary data, but the ability to customize it in this format is a pretty unique way to look at it. Again, just changing here from average to rank. You can mess around with percentage of rounds gains, what the average is, total. Lots of different ways to look at all this data as well. Also want to show you too, you can do this. We are excited for this. It is still working out. I think we're pretty good on the kink side. You can click on any player We'll have pictures updated for them soon. We know Keegan's much more handsome than this, but you can look into the player page, and any of this data that's available via the rabbit hole you can look at from a player standpoints. Look at any of the views here. Looking at here the rolling 12 months, you look at all these conditional breakdowns from a chart standpoint. You can see here in terms of putting splits, looking at AM, PM, wave advantage, rounds, course length, field strength, scoring conditions, some of the key buckets we touched on here. You look at all this from a player page standpoint and look at all of this stuff. And then you can go down and look at summary of events, the rolling 12, 24, 50, 100, and all rounds. And you can get all of their specific event data here too, with the ability to filter out just by majors. You can search by any specific events. Looking here too in this drop down box, pretty cool for you to be able to look at here, mess around with. Obviously, you can go back to the top here, enter anyone's name, and do the same thing for anyone else too. If you want to look at anyone, look at Scott Harrington if you want. It's all in here. So pretty exciting stuff. All right, let's go back. We'll run this. We'll see what we get. And again, you want to do your own model, check us out. If you want, again, go over to the website. There's some different ways to partner with some of our affiliates that you can get in for cheap. Otherwise, if you don't have access to those, DM us. We'll get you a discount, let you get started, check out those player pages, get you a cheap week. Check us out at the Memorial. Maybe get a little bit of that US Open stuff too. You can download any of this into a CSV, mess around and cut stuff up over on Excel. You can view expert rankings too. So if you want to go in here, you can see Matt Vicenzi of Tap It In podcast. His model's already in. I built a model already. Andy Lack from Inside Golf has his first run model for Muirfield Village in here as well. I think it's a really useful tool. I always like to look at what these other guys are doing. I click on all those, see what data they're putting in, what they're modeling. Maybe I missed, I should capture, see if there's any commonalities through other people's models. And then I can go back and build one with some of those things maybe that I missed. And I like to see just the results of theirs as well. So that's accessible to you as well when you subscribe, because I know some of this can be intimidating to folks the first time they do it. Just click that green button at the top, create mixed condition model. We'll do our first look. Muirfield. And I will save this as an expert, and it'll be in that model drop down for us. You can mess around with the weights. This is really where, to Ron's point, you can add so many things this week. It just becomes a matter of how much do you want to credit each particular stat. So I think, going, again, difficult and long matters a ton. You got to be able to drive it this week. Just again, I would take more time for the sake of the show. We want to make sure we can move it along a little bit. Approach, I'd probably go a little bit longer. Good drives as well, and then we'll go a little bit smaller in terms of off the green or around the green. We'll keep that at 10. Let me mess around with these guys. And again, I take more time and care, but this is just to show you it spit out. Do you think weighing this long and difficult, I think, is kind of an anchor stat? Is there that matters more than anything? We're going to get the best guys at the top here. I'll save and generate it. Let's see what we get. I think we're going to get Scotty at the top, Ron.
Yeah.
Scotty Scheffler, Ludwig Oberg, Siwoo Kim, third, Xander Schauffele, fourth, Shane Lowry, fifth, Hideki, sixth, Rory, seventh, Wyndham Clark, eighth, Benny Ann, 9, Corey Connors. Corey Connors putted his face off last week. 10, finished out the model. Some other interesting names, not too far behind. Also like to look at who, especially in a strong field, who is rating out poorly here. Bobby Magnus will update. He's officially out. Malnati, Sneds, Dunlap, Gotterup, Kuchar kind of at the bottom of your list here too. So again, DFS decisions, finishing position bets, whatever you like to look at. I think looking at the inverse of who populates the top of the model makes a ton of sense here. So any final takeaways here for the folks, Ron?
Yeah, I was just looking at Siwoo, and when you look at what he's done here, pretty impressive. Fourth last year, 13th, 9th, 18th. So, Siwoo's maybe a guy to keep an eye on and maybe do a little more research digging into. Just the guy you'd expect, and trying to find some value on the betting board here, and looking forward to the week.
Yep, love it. Yes, some some interesting names. Again, jump in, make your own model, see what stats we have in ours. And again, I think this helps narrow down your player pool, helps you make betting decisions here on a Monday morning when the betting board, opens up and things are shifting a lot. So, yeah, check out the player pages. They're awesome. I think it's a really helpful tool to be able to dig in and isolate specific player stuff, trends, anything like that. So if you have questions, reach out to us directly on Twitter at Betsperts Golf. Subscribe here on YouTube. Come back Tuesday for the betting show. Myself and Andy Molitor. Wednesday, Ron and Byron, the Model Maniac, doing our DFS show in the afternoon. And again, subscription gets you access to all this. Gets you in our Discord. Great community who, live sweats all this stuff. People going in and, picking off soft matchups. Again, you get access to our DFS tools. Again, we have awesome DFS optimizer. We have a custom simulator for matchups that I think is a really useful tool that people are having a lot of success with. So check it out over at betspertsgolf.com. So for Ron, I'm Ryan. We'll see you all next time. Thanks for hanging out with us.